So we're ready for our final step in this painting, which is painting in our subject matter. We're going to really focus on the umbrella because that's going to be the major part of where your grade comes from. And so let's talk about that right now. So what I want you to do in the umbrella is represent the color wheel. Show me that you are able to put the colors in order correctly and that you are able to make all of those tertiary and secondary colors. Okay, so that's really what I want to see in here, and that's going to be a major part of your grade. So you have a couple ways of doing this. I would recommend really pulling out that color wheel that we just completed, and as you're working, looking at that. I'm also going to show you how I paint when I'm working with watercolors so that I don't have to stop constantly, and so that I can work a little bit more quickly and use my time wisely. Okay, so for this, we're all going to follow the order of the color wheel. For the bottom, it is 100% up to you how you paint this. It's your choice what color the skirt is, what's on the skirt, or if you're doing shorts or pants, that's up to you, okay? So yes, some of our painting will look the same. Our backgrounds might look similar. Our umbrellas should look the same, but the bottom half is really your choice in how it looks on the person. So you choose what skin color you want the legs to be. You choose what color you want the rain boots. That's all 100% up to you. I am going to show you how I work when I am painting. Okay, so I'm looking at my color wheel, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by painting the first color I want to appear on here. So do keep in mind, I'm not going to paint this entire color wheel with you because I want you to show me you know how to do it. So I'm going to show you how I paint to get started, but I am not going to walk you through painting this whole color wheel. That's your job now. You've learned how to do it. We've practiced it. Now it's your turn to show me what you know. Okay, so I activated my paints already, and I am going to start my painting carefully. Pick the right brush for the size of the area you're painting in. I am standing up actually right now. I was sitting down. I don't really like to sit when I paint. You can do whatever is comfortable for you. So I'm putting this yellow on here. And then I want to actually kind of do a shading effect. So I just rinsed my brush out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start pulling that color towards the end of my umbrella with just some water, and that's going to lighten this umbrella up at the end. Okay, so that's one way of doing shading. When you're using watercolors, there's more than one way to do it. This is just one way. So again, rinsing my brush, putting just some clean water on there and making sure my brush isn't really sopping wet, just damp, and pulling that color to the edge. Just making sure I get that pigment in. Okay, so now let's talk about what would happen. You should know this. I've been talking about this a lot in the videos. If I painted something right beside it right now, those colors would likely bleed or blend together. We don't want that to happen. It's going to make for a messy presentation. So what I would do as an artist who's worked with watercolors, and what I want you to do is I want you to not paint anything that's directly beside that yellow. Okay? So that means you're going to let this area stay dry as this is drying, because if I paint right beside it, I'm going to get a messy painting. So I have a couple of choices in what I do. One thing you can do, and I'll show you one more step, is you could go down and you could paint the legs on your person. You could paint this square or this square. Okay, actually they're not squares, they're triangles, but those sections. Okay, so that you're hopping around, you're painting, and essentially if one part is wet, you're never painting beside it, you're picking another spot to paint, whether it's the skirt or the boots, okay? So I'm just going to do another section in my umbrella because I haven't yet decided what I am going to do for the skirt and the legs and the boots. So I know what my umbrella is going to look like, so I'm going to work on that. Be very careful. Take your time. Look at your color wheel and think about what color would be next. If I started with yellow and I'm skipping a space, think about what color am I putting in there next. And again, look at your color wheel if you need to, because you do not want to screw this up, okay? So if you need to go back and look at your color wheel, do that. So we know that on either side of yellow on our color wheel, we're either going to have, we would have yellow orange or yellow green. So here I've got my color wheel, here's yellow. I know that it would either be yellow green or yellow orange beside it, but this is wet, so I'm not going to paint those. So that means I would either have orange or I would have green. Okay, so that's how you're going to do this. I'm going to paint my orange in here on this side. So I'm going to start with my brush loaded with paint. That just means my paintbrush is wet and I've got lots of paint in it. And again, I'm going to use that same technique where I am painting much more saturated color on first. And then as my paint begins to run out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with my wet paintbrush. It's not sopping wet, it's not dripping, it's just damp. And I'm going to pull that color out so that it gets lighter towards the end of my umbrella. And as you start to see it get dry like that, that means you need to add a little bit more water to your brush. You should always have a wet brush unless you're doing a very special technique with a dry brush. That's not going to happen very often with watercolors. Watercolors are called watercolors because they need water in order to work. Okay? So do keep that in mind. I'm going to rinse my brush out. Okay, so I'm going to let that section dry. Again, I'm not going to paint anything in that area because if I do, then my colors are going to bleed together. So when I say I'm not going to paint anything in that area, while I am waiting for this to dry, I better find somewhere else to paint, okay? Because if I paint here or here, they will bleed. And this probably isn't dry yet, so I'm not going to paint here either. So again, I could come down and paint the skirt, I could paint the boots, I can paint the legs. So basically when we're working in watercolors and we're waiting for things to dry, we're hopping around our painting as needed and painting those different areas. If you need to map these colors out by marking them very lightly with a pencil, you can. Just make sure that you go back in and erase those marks before you paint it. So if this was yellow and this is yellow orange, I might write YO in there for myself, but before I went to paint it, I'd erase it, okay? I'm not gonna walk you through the rest because I wanna see what you come up with and how well you know color theory and the color wheel. All right, can't wait to see what you create.